When you think of the perfect recipe, you think salt, pepper, oregano, whatever your favorites are. But Chef Sam Hart is sharing that their recipe for a perfect restaurant is actually people, community, and creativity. New Year, New Me is bringing a whole new vibe to Community Matters Cafe. I am here with Chef Sam Hart. Bragging moment, the new member of the Michelin-Star family. Chef, I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so pumped I'm here too. Really awesome having a conversation with you at the restaurant and really excited to kind of pick things up there and discuss a little bit more about the city and what we're doing and that connection.
So I have to kick things off at the counter where everything started. And can I just tell you what I was nervous about going into this?
Oh, I'm so intrigued by this because there's so many different things that people freak out about.
So one thing about me is that my boss calls me this, I'm fancy but not. Like I want to do my best. I want to put my best foot forward. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I've been to culinary experiences before where, you know, the cheese was made of air or whatever it was. And I was worried that that's what I was walking into. And number one, that dietary restrictions could be accommodated for me. And number two, that I wouldn't be smart enough to appreciate things. And can I just praise you because you and your team created a culinary experience that was not only incredibly delicious in every single bite, but the reverie that you gave to the history before the dishes even came, the choreography, the positive energy, the fist bumps. Like, I never thought I'd be like having a Michelin-Star chef fist bumping me with his team. So let's just dive into what is Counter if somebody has no idea what I'm talking about.
So Counter is a fully immersive storytelling dining experience. There we go. We've been working on that, where we try to fully immerse you in every single sense that you have. So we'll bring up nostalgia, we'll play music, you know, we'll also have certain visual elements, all those different cues to really tap in. It's a very evocative menu, to say the least. And I love that you brought up how you kind of felt like you might not understand or be smart enough to appreciate the experience, because I feel like that's when restaurants get almost a little too heady and they think too technical and too skill focused, where, you know, I grew up, only child, single mom, and for me, dining out was going to Carrabba's if I had good grades, or going to McDonald's to get what I call them chicken McNuggets instead of chicken McNuggets. So like, I say that we all have this root DNA of flavor. You know, all of us, especially here in the United States, we all know what French fries taste like. We all know what a good burger tastes like. We all know what, you know, that spaghetti and meatballs that you can get at a mom and pop Italian restaurant tastes like.
Yes.
So that nostalgia and that connection, you know, we can create those flavors and make those establishments in what we do with fine dining. And yes, we're always going to showcase the region, and, you know, that's something that, you know, we'll definitely at some point talk about because I can't stop talking about it. But it's one of those things where we love to make that connection where each individual person, even though they're all dining together, because that's how it's set up, you have 18 people dining around a counter at the same time. We want each individual person to have a personal experience within each service that we have. And that's where we really kind of focus in and hone in on how we can make that connection with every guest.
The connection is something that was so key. Every single person who came by me, looked me in the eye, knew my name, and knew that I wasn't going to be the seafood girly that night. And even you personally brought me dishes of hand-carved carrots and things like that to make sure that I wasn't missing out on anything and that I felt special and recognized being there. So that was something that was really impressive to me. And also the fact that every single menu, like you said, has an audio-visual experience, has a story behind it. So something that was, without giving it away, because you just need to go visit Counter to experience some of these things, but something you encouraged all of us to do along the way was to think about our own story and our own origin and actually embrace that, versus a lot of times when we're trying to create a personal brand or we need to have a business or a big idea, especially in the new year. It's like, we need to lose 120 pounds. We got a personal rebrand. We got to redo the house. You know, we always want to just flip everything over. But you really encouraged everyone to embrace who they were at the core and where they came from.
Yeah, I think that's something that I struggled a lot with growing up is I knew that I was different just with how I was brought up and what my childhood was like. And I didn't want to be the same as other people. But also at the same time, I wanted to figure out some way to fit in and not be the outcast. I would end up finding my way to be the latter anyway. But what we are really trying to do, especially with this menu, is everyone is trying to do, because there's this whole, I'm sure that you're very aware of it, there's this whole like maximizing thing that's going on right now, especially with teens. And it's really, in a way, saddening to me because you see like some of these older teenagers like going and getting like veneers and like doing all this crazy stuff with like certain medications, like make them look like this perfect person. And what we really need to be doing is seeing who we are as individuals, discovering ourselves, knowing that all of us will have similar chapters in our lives, but it's going to be different stories within it. And so that's what this menu is really about. And it's a menu called Home that we're doing until the end of February. And each one of us has different moments that represent each one of the courses. But that's how right now the 14 different dishes that you get throughout that experience, even though they're titled the same, it's the same ingredients minus dietary restrictions, they're going to evoke different emotions and different stories out of each person. And through that, hopefully, people being more excited about discovering who they are and being proud of who they are and not trying to be someone else or trying to compare themselves to someone else.
And comparison really is something that I think is realistic because especially you're in a very competitive industry. I know I am. And so it can almost snatch all of your joy and confidence away because the second you look at someone else who's done more than you or achieved more than you, I think that's when we can almost undo the goodness that we've done. So how do you, within the confines of Counter, make sure that you can focus on what's best for your team, what's best for your dishes, what's best for the people who are sitting across that counter from you?
So you kind of open Pandora's box as far as talking about how we think in Counter. So our number one priority within the restaurant is the employee. So every single person who works at Counter, if you were to go over there right now and ask them, hey, what is your biggest goal at this restaurant? Or what is your primary focus? Each one of them is going to tell you the goals and the objectives that every person has in this kitchen. Because if everyone's working together for each person that's there, we're going to raise each other up, we're going to develop things, we're going to create not only better dishes and better experiences, but we're going to create better cooks, chefs, front of house members, hospitality staff. I think that's something that people have this false understanding and false narrative in their head of competition. Because I don't think, besides quick service restaurants and franchise restaurants, I don't think that we are in a very competitive industry, especially here in Charlotte. I think that there is this false narrative that's being pushed out there that kind of is born out of insecurity in a way, where people think, oh, we have to push this other restaurant down or really find our way to lift ourselves up so we can separate ourselves from the quote unquote competition. But no one's going to dine at Counter every single day. No one's going to dine at Counter every single week. At Counter, we have 2 guests who are the most visited guests. They have dined 75 times, which is insane, which is absolutely insane. But that is barely once a month. So to say that I need to do whatever I need to do to be better than this other restaurant so they come and see me more often, all you're going to do is kind of drive yourself into the ground and focus all your efforts into pleasing someone that you're only going to see maybe once a month, instead of figuring out a way to uplift the people that you see every single day, 15 hours a day. And by proxy, when they start to develop and you're pouring into them, they're pouring into one another, all of a sudden this restaurant starts getting exponentially better and better and better. And then the guests take care of themselves. At Counter, we have 10 different priorities. None of them are our guest. Because by taking care of all of those, we know that the guest is going to take care of themselves. So if we care about storytelling, if we care about making the connections through music, if we care about our producers and our community and our employees and so on and so forth, the guest will understand that, the guest will connect with that, and we'll have a great vibe with the guest because of it.
And I can sit here and advocate for that because, like I said, when I came in, I Had no idea what to expect. Like I said, I was like, okay, I can do fancy schmancy. Like, don't embarrass my friend who invited me. Okay. But it was such an elevated experience and also the most welcoming experience I could have asked for. Also, I don't know what you put in that tiny peanut that you make, but like I've never had anything so good. And it was funny because I thought I was having a TV moment where I'm like, oh, haha, it's gonna be funny. They're gonna serve us a peanut. And you actually served me a peanut. And I was like, this is probably where I start to be the silly goose in this situation, but it was the best peanut I ever had. And then
at 24 different things in it.
At 24 different things in it. I was like in this one peanut. And
none of it was peanut. That's the funniest thing. Is like there's no peanuts in the peanut.
Yeah. So the
dish is nuts.
There were so many dishes nuts for the dad joke.
That's literally the whole reason why we make it a peanut is so I can make that joke.
Yeah, it's great. It was so great. And you were so funny. And it was like,
don't tell the team that, they'll disagree.
Your team, I know loves you, and like you said, pouring love and respect back into them, it makes all the difference in the world. Because if you had told me, hey, do you think you could guess our 10 priorities? I definitely would have thought that guest service or guest experience would be in there. But I just think that shows how much you do and pour into your team, because that all flows so organically down to the guest. But something that is extremely different about Counter that you shared with us is that so many people under that roof are also owners and have that owner mentality. And I think that's something that you do really well, but it's very potentially different. Can you dive into a little bit of that business model and how you'd like to see potentially more restaurants take that on?
Yeah. So, I'll be the first person to admit it. We have a very, I want to say this word and I'm going to lose some people, but we have kind of this Marxist approach to how we have ownership of the restaurant, where making money is not the end all be all of the restaurant. My silent investors who initially got in, they'll be the first ones to tell you, like, that's not our main priority. But I also was taught from a very young age from my mom is that you should never build anything that you're not willing to share and give away. So especially, the owners that we have in place now, we gave them ownership before Michelin took place. We announced publicly that the vast majority of the ownership of the restaurant was going to change hands to the team before Michelin took place. And a lot of people, even we had a very, very well-known TV chef on a podcast recently say that there's no way we're actually going to do this and no way we're actually going to close now that we got a star. Sorry, Carla, we are. But no, she's awesome. I met her in the James Beard Awards a couple years ago. She's amazing, but she's got a good point. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, our ownership model doesn't make sense.
You can be awesome and be wrong at the same time. Yeah. That's okay.
But I think it is so counterintuitive, but that is the point of Counter. Like, the name Counter and the dash at the end has nothing to do with you dining at a counter. It's about us being the antithesis and really kind of this opposing force and balance to the way that fine dining has been. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's something where we all need to share in this. We all need to be collaborative with it, because I'm definitely not perfect. When we first started the restaurant, I was not like, I looking back, I used to say that I wasn't ready. I think I was ready, but I needed to learn so much more about myself during that time frame, where when you're opening up a restaurant in COVID, right, and you have a team of 4 and you're only feeding maybe 150 people a month, your mode is just survival, and your mode is to just get things going and turn a profit so you know that you can survive. When we moved to the new location, things changed, because not only were we feeding more people, but my staff had gone up 4 times. So now it was this mode when we first changed in to the new location of, I've got to take care of these people. I got to make sure that I can, like, they can go home and know that they're going to pay their bills, know that, we are going to be sound financially, that we are representing ourselves properly. Then it morphed into, we want to progress, we want to get better, because I've always believed in that concept of if you're either living or you're dying. And we are so growth focused. There's a term that we use called Trek, Tryk, and it's a Danish word that just means to push in a positive mindset. So we're just pushing. But then when you're constantly just focused on pushing, you start to lose people, because sometimes you're pushing people too far. Sometimes you're pushing yourself too far. And then we kind of found this sweet spot, probably February, March of 2025. And we really realized that, okay, what we need to do is we need to take this approach very individually, but through that, it'll be cohesive. And how can we create a healthier, better hospitality group? And then we realized that everything that we have been doing over the past 5 years had led us to that moment of change and knowledge and understanding, where we had already put in place the assistance to our 501c3 partners. We had already put into place employee ownership. We had already put in place, no one makes a single-handed decision that's important. So like, I don't hire anyone by myself. I don't fire anyone by myself. I don't make any major decisions by myself at the restaurant. It's a collective. So Michelin kind of showed up at the perfect time, because we made this decision together back in February when we found out that they were coming. It was like, do we want to change who we are, or do we want to double down on who we are? And if we get a star not being us, we would not be okay with it. But if we don't get a star being us, we would be fine. So this whole perfect storm took place, and the past year we have been sold out to ourselves. And there's nothing that anyone can say about the restaurant, any critic can write about, no amount of stars, no award that will change what that looks like. And everyone is bought in. Everyone at that restaurant has the same mentality. And so not only does it make it very easy to have that ownership share and kind of divide things up, but we are really conquering it together. And it's just really beautiful to see. Like I tell people all the time, it takes a whole village. I'm just very privileged to be their idiot. It's a really beautiful thing. And I'm excited to see where it's going next, because we're now starting to bring in employees who never heard about the restaurant until after Michelin.
Okay.
So they have one idea of what Counter is,
right,
which is the current. And then we have so many other people who've seen the different iterations of Counter. And it's just beautiful to see it all come together.
So as a leader, even if we took the hospitality or the restaurant space out of it, you mentioned earlier that at the beginning part of you maybe was branding that as you not being quite ready, but that really what it was understanding certain things about yourself.
Yeah.
What work did you do to get to a point where you felt more confident in yourself, more fluid in yourself, more calm in the self that you are now?
I think it had to. There's so many different situations. I think the biggest ones were as far as confidence in really being myself and confident in going after the stories that we wanted to tell. It was when I dined at a place called Alchemist in Copenhagen. There really is a before and after of my culinary life dining at that restaurant. It was 7.5 hours, 65 impressions, 30 of them being dishes. And Chef Rasmus is brilliant, but he also only tells his story the way he wants to tell it. And it's only got 2 Michelin stars, but it probably will win Best Restaurant in the World this year with World's 50 Best. It's been in the top 10 for years. And he doesn't use any well-known, prime, expensive cuts of protein. He uses trash. And his whole focus is to make a more responsible and more a healthier environment, and just be a better beacon of sustainability. So, for example, he does this chocolate bar dish that is all about child labor being used in Africa to make chocolate. Then he also has a dish that I wept over for 10 minutes, and it looked like a blood drop. And it was a blood and chocolate ganache dish that was about donating blood. And for me, as a queer person, I wasn't able to donate blood at all legally up until about 10 years ago. And so I wept over this dish, because he also had a QR code that you could scan in. No matter where you were in the world, it can tell you where you could donate blood. And I freaked out. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, man, if he can be a top 10 restaurant in the world and tell whatever story he wants to tell that's important to him,
one day
it's like...
I wasn't even there.
But why can't we tell our story? Why can't we go after what we want to say? And so there is no more boundaries. There is no more borders. There's no more limits to what we were going to do or what we were going to say. We did a menu called Mountain, and that menu was not only about the mountainous region of North Carolina, but the mountains that we've overcome as a restaurant. And I asked every one of the employees, what's the most important moments in our restaurant history so that we can tell that story? And it was a unanimous decision that the most important moment was when we had a sommelier named David who worked at the restaurant for only about 2-3 weeks, but unfortunately on his way back home to Charlotte to go to work, he passed in a car accident. And it was devastating to us. I mean, we just didn't even know how to experience it. And to tell, a kitchen team, like, hey, we need to make a dish that's in honor of one of our family members that passed away, and then somehow translate that to a group of guests who had never met him before in the middle of a dinner that they're spending probably more money they've ever spent in their life on a dinner. It's an intimidating thing, but we knew that we had to do it, and that was my favorite dish that we had on that entire menu. So that experience was definitely important for us. And then the other two that really solidified the restaurant and me personally was when we learned about the Bulb and the work that they do here in Charlotte as a mobile market. They have over 30 different mobile markets where they're bringing what they call rescue produce. So 40% of the produce that is produced in the United States gets taken immediately to a landfill, even though it's beautiful, fresh, everything. Just wasn't picked up by distributors, wasn't bought, whatever it may be. We purchase that produce from the farmers, so they get supported, and then we take that produce and give it to families in food insecure neighborhoods. So this year, we have assisted in redirecting around somewhere around 40,000 pounds of produce that would have made its way to a landfill and instead went into the homes of people who need it. And that is the biggest thing at the restaurant that we're all like just trying to do more and more and more and more with, because we understand how great the problem is, but also how solvable it is.
Right.
Like, it can be taken care of. So that was a huge piece. And then on a lighthearted note, you brought up how I've been going through this hot girl summer, like, fitness journey.
Yes.
This is so embarrassing. The whole reason why I started getting into shape is because we put risotto on the menu in the spring, and I was doing 2 pans of risotto at the same time. And it takes like 20 to 30 minutes to make risotto. And I was getting winded. I was getting exhausted making this risotto. I was like, absolutely not. So I started losing weight so that I could cook risotto. And then all of a sudden it turned into a whole bunch of other stuff.
Hey, whatever your goal is, if it makes you feel better, I think you're doing a great job. When I saw you and you were moving around the kitchen, I was like, they are jacked. Like, look, because you're holding your iPad, just sitting here. I'm like, they got guns ablazing.
I'm trying.
Let's go.
I'm trying. I'm like the smallest. I go to this gym where it's a bunch of people who are like bodybuilders and stuff like that. I feel like the smallest person there. And yeah, oh man. I'm
like, excuse me, can you hand me that 25? Thanks. Just move your 150 out of the way.
Sorry.
Don't mind me. No, but I think that's great, because something I see as just a theme for you in the time that I've known you and gotten to talk with you. And like I said, just seeing you on social, but is that you're always looking for little changes and maybe small adaptations. But something that you reminded me of is when you brought up the farmers and the agriculture. And like you said, maybe that produce doesn't get purchased from farmers, doesn't get picked up. It just shows that you can make a difference if you just take 110%. The time to make the difference. Because I think that's the thing, is everything is so fast paced. One thing I loved about our experience at Counter was that it wasn't dragging, but it also, I didn't feel like anyone was trying to turn me out of here. I felt like you respected my bedtime, and also I was getting this experience. And of course, in my media mind, I'm trying to capture certain moments, but I almost didn't want to pick up my phone because I didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
But also wanted to brag on you guys later and be like, everyone should go do this. But one of my favorite monologues, the artist that you have in-house, I'm so sorry, remind me of her name.
So we have a few different ones. So Sydney is our curator who made 2 of the pieces there.
Sydney.
She is amazing. She also does our floral arrangements. And like, she'll incorporate the craziest things into the floral arrangements. Like, she'll be like, hey, can I use one of those eggplant and one of those daikon? And we're like, what? And it makes no sense. And then she throws into a floral arrangement. And we're like, that's the coolest thing we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I want to brag on her. This past weekend, she sold that gigantic piece in there.
The one that's on the wall?
The gigantic one. And we were so proud of her. It's the biggest piece she's ever sold. And it just, we all started crying because, I think something that people forget about in restaurants is that we have lives outside of the restaurant.
Yes.
And I love that our team supports so much, not only the team within those four walls, but like what they do outside those four walls. So it's a cool moment. But
Yeah, she was incredible, and she's just a very striking looking person, and I was like, oh, is this one of those restaurants that hires models to walk around? Like that's what I thought the vibe was. I was like, okay,
she
very
is
New York.
technically a model. Actually,
she is absolutely.
a model. Yeah.
Tyra, come scout her out. But then she had this beautiful monologue talking about the farmers, and I think you talk about weeping over a dish. Like I get this is why I get a tissue box this season. But I get emotional talking about agriculture because growing up in Rock Hill and knowing, a lot of my friends worked on their farms before they came to school. A lot of their parents' livelihoods depended on if pumpkins did well that year or if corn did well that year. A lot of my friends drove tractors better than they drove cars, and
especially in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Especially in Rock Hill. Fun fact, Fort Mill had to take your tractor to school day, but it's something that's getting harder and harder. And as I talk to generations of families who have farms, it's one of those things that you really just have to have so much faith. And that's something that Sydney talked about in her monologue was the fact that they give so much to the earth, and they just kind of really have to have faith in what they're doing because you have so little control.
It's true.
As a farmer, but just the fact that you took a moment for the farmers, that's when I got emotion there was that.
Well, and I won't lie. Initially, when we opened up the restaurant, it wasn't a huge focus. And then it really became a focus from how great the produce was. Because I thought after working in Chicago for a little bit that we had to import in things. Our second menu at Counter, we had A5 on the menu, and I was bringing in lobster and scallops from Maine and all this stuff because I thought that was the best product.
Right.
But then, and shout out to Fresh List, I started working with all these other farmers, and to show fennel from Boy and Girl Farm, and then to show tomatoes from Small City Farm, those flavors are so much more impactful, and they tell a stronger story. And then we get, we recently started working with Smoke and Chimneys trout up in Virginia, and it is, I will die on this hill, it is the most amazing trout that exists. Like, it is incredible. It makes sense why Per Se and Jean and all these multi Michelin-Star restaurants use them. Like, it's incredible, and it's just 3 hours away from us. But then it started becoming a cheat code, and then we started learning more about how everyone likes to talk about supporting farms,
right,
but no one really is on a large scale. Not to get too political whilst going full politics on this, not to completely call this person out, but we voted this past election for someone who outwardly was talking about removing all grants to assist small family-owned farms. Like, we voted for that, and all of the grants for the major corporations, they stayed in place and grew. And, it's something where you got to stop thinking about party lines or whoever. You really need to think about, okay, what's more important? This mega corporation giving you one kind of corn all year long, or assisting this family in producing this beautiful bounty of diverse produce that might not be the most perfectly pristine, super spherical beet every single time, but you're supporting a family directly and supporting the environmental diversity of what we have here. And we talk about that a lot at the restaurant because it is a cheat code for our flavors. Like, the food that I get from these farms is exponentially better than anything that I could get from any mass agricultural farm. Is it going to be more consistent in how it looks? No. Is it going to be more consistent in how it's priced? No. Is it going to be more consistent for me to know that I'm going to get it every single Wednesday? No. But is it going to taste better and I can shake the hand of the person who grew it? Yes. And that's more important to us. Our food cost is astronomical solely because of our vegetables. And we're proud of that. So it does make a big difference. And especially after Hurricane Helene now 2024, we tried to figure out how we could assist farms up there. And we completely changed a lot of who we were sourcing our stuff from because we knew that they needed clients because so many people up in the mountains, they were relying on Asheville restaurants. So many of those closed down. And we had, like, our forager was thinking about changing careers, and we're like, absolutely not. Almost cussed. Absolutely not.
I was like, you can't.
We were supporting them. We were paying an astronomical amount of money for just a little bit here and there, just so we knew that he would stay doing what he needed to do. We switched up our beef supplier. I've never really been a big beef person, but the story behind Brasstown Beef and what they're able to do for us, it's something where now it's an integral piece of every single menu that we do. So it's not an obligation that we have. Like, it's not saying like we have to do this or else. It's more that we get to do this, and we need more people who are willing to go after that too. And that's why I love so much that Michelin highlighted that. Growing up in this restaurant, well, I didn't grow up in the restaurant industry. I moved industries when I was 24. But when I was learning cooking, what I saw so much of is people trying to mimic what they would see in other cities.
Right.
And if you're trying to mimic a restaurant in DC or Atlanta or New York or wherever, you want to buy from the same people. And those aren't here. And now, especially after Michelin highlighted it, now there's this desire to source more locally, sometimes out of reasons of, we need to have Michelin look at this differently, or James Beard look at this differently. Most of the time it's out of maybe the product really is better.
Right.
So,
or just
as long as it's making that change.
Yeah. I think it's really incredible how you talk about change and how it can also, just like you said, lead back to your origin story. But something else that you do is change locations a lot, and you love to travel. And I am constantly advocating for travel because I know it can seem scary. Some people don't like the airports. Listen, we've all been through TSA. I feel you. Like, just the flight conditions, just getting out. But for me personally, I think that we actually find we have so much in common when we leave our comfort zones. And we have so many different things that are different, but also so many commonalities. So just getting to love and appreciate where you're from, but how has going away from that, just to travel and see and do and eat and sip other places, also made you just appreciate and connect more with cuisine?
Every single person that comes in to do what we call stage or interview at the restaurant, every single one of them, they ask me how they can be better cooks or better front of house people. And I tell them every single time. It's also why my first interview question is, what is your favorite place you've ever dined at in your life? Not the best, just what's your favorite? And we have had answers everywhere from Waffle House to Mido to all these other places, 11 Madison Park, whatever. The biggest issue that cooks have now versus even 15, 20 years ago is that cooks, especially in Charlotte, are not dining enough. And part of it deals with them not getting paid enough and not getting paid time off. But a lot of it is Instagram and these apps that connect you with Michelin-Star restaurants and their recipes, but you don't get to know what it tastes like. You don't get to know how they're curating it or how they're telling the story. And so for me, when we take 3 weeks off every single year at the restaurant, that's when I go on vacation. I am dining nonstop, minimum two tastings a day, just going all out, because I don't want to learn techniques and flavors to steal. It's more that I want to learn how they're telling their story and the techniques that they're using to tell their story. So then I can come back and be like, okay, I saw how they did this with teardrop peas in Spain. We can do that with spring snap peas here in North Carolina. Or how can we take how they talked about this rice dish and in Colombia and then turn it into something that we showcase, grits in the Carolinas.
Oh, your grits were good.
So, grits is a love language. So traveling is a huge piece. I also tell young cooks that they don't read enough. I don't think anyone reads enough. Unless you're reading every single day, you're not reading enough. And I don't read. I read a lot of cookbooks in the sense like I read it word for word and read a lot of like theory of food and stuff like that. But I always tell people like read things that get you closer to what you're trying to achieve. travel and go to places that inspire you to achieve it. Don't just turn into brain rot, you know?
Yeah. And that can be hard.
It's hard.
Have you ever just all of a sudden, like, you'll be in there and you're like, how has it been an hour? What am I doing with my life? You know? And
I mean, I'm not perfect.
it's happened to me.
Did I binge watch the last season of Stranger Things this weekend? Yes, I did. Was I incredibly disappointed? Yes. But I'm still going to spend, 10 hours, 11 hours, doing something dumb. But I'm still going to find ways to keep the flame going, because there's a quote that as soon as you can do what you have been, what your passion, what you're driven to do, as soon as you can do that with no inspiration or motivation at all, that's when you'll become successful with it.
Ooh, okay.
Where you don't need to watch a certain video, you don't need to listen to a certain song, whatever, to get things done. You just get things done because that's what you are. That's a flame that you have to tend to. You have to fan it. You have to feed it more. You got to shield it when wind comes through. You got to take care of it. And that's a daily ritual, not just I'm going to go do this thing for a weekend and then that's going to give me enough inspiration for 3 months. Mm-hmm. No, because something that's worse is probably going to happen, 2 weeks later and throw you off the horse. So it's a continual habitual process for sure.
Yeah. I like that you talked about rituals, and something I remember when I was in your restaurant was wondering what a day looks like for you, because this experience is very interactive. It's not Sam in the back and then dishes are just coming out. There's choreography, there is synchronization, there's plates moving at the same time, there's music, there's beats dropping. So what do you do to make sure that you are fully present? Because you're on. I mean, you're on for 2 hours. I know your first time you did the menu, you said it was double that, but you guys have a tight show, you got a tight set here, but I mean, you're on
right now. So our menu that we're doing right now is a little bit longer. So guests arrive at 5:20, and then guests usually leave our second service at 11. So nonstop for 5 hours and 40 minutes. Showtime.
Yeah. So how do you get ready for a show? I mean, I know what show day looks like for me, doing 2 shows a day and sometimes 3 and whatever. So what do you do that gets you mentally, physically, emotionally show ready? Especially on days where you don't feel like any of those 3.
We have pre-service, and then one of the most important things at a restaurant is tasters. Like, we taste all the ingredients, not just to make sure that it's all proper and do some last minute seasonings, but it's also to build confidence.
Okay.
Because if you're making a dish that requires 2 minute elements, but you know that the other 6 elements that you made earlier today are perfect, you got so much more confidence going into it. You're not spending your time wondering, I want to cook this right, but like, is that puree good? Or is it like, this sounds so ridiculous, but we've got a dish right now that if a certain puree is not at the certain temperature in a certain kind of squeeze bottle, it just won't function. Like we do a certain plating with it and it just won't work. And it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And if I can look over my shoulder and be like, okay, that's set up. I know I'm going to get time there. This is ready to go. This is solid and it tastes delicious. Then I know that the only thing that I need to do is focus on this moment. And when you're at a normal restaurant, when you don't know exactly how many people you're going to feed and exactly what they're getting and the timing of it, it feels like it's just not going to end, and it's just going and going, and it's like, and then all of a sudden you're at the end of the shift, but it's just so draining. For us, we'll hear a certain song and know, okay, we are an hour and 30 minutes in to this 3-hour service. And now the ball is rolling downhill in a good way, and we can just catch that momentum. Or if we're having a bad day, we're like, okay, this beat just dropped. We're halfway there. We can turn things around. So yeah, I think that's how we really get into the mental framework, is constantly doing check-ins, making sure that everyone's solid, helping out if they're not, tasters to build confidence, pre-service meetings so we're all on the same page. And then when the music starts, the music starts. It's something to get accustomed to when you first start working there, but once you're accustomed to it, then you just flow. Faith is hysterical about this. Faith will pick up dishes and bounce around the kitchen to the beat of every single song.
Yes. Is that the pastry chef?
Yeah,
No.
she's our executive pastry chef.
Yes.
And one of
Shout
the
out to her
employee
who
owners.
just got engaged, right? A couple months ago.
Well, she got engaged, I think, a year ago now. It just feels so fresh still, but she's getting married next year. We're super excited about it.
I was like, let me see the ring, and
awesome.
she came over and like showed me, but she was just, I also love just getting to see those people. So many times, like you have these dishes and I'm just like I'll remember that I talked to her about her engagement and why the island where she got engaged was in part of her menu. Like none of these people remember me, I'm sure, but I'm just like, I thought we left best friends. I was like, this was great. The person who met me at the door and this, that, and the other. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I felt like I was meeting people that I'd met before. So
you'll
to
be
create
surprised.
that
They
is
remember,
special.
They remember our guests pretty well.
They were like the yappy blonde one at the end who kept slowing down service.
No, what will be so funny is that we don't even need. Sometimes we'll have on their guest, what we call their chit, how many times they visited there. Mm-hmm. Our team will remember them very quickly because we spend 3 hours with you. Yeah. You know, so we'll remember the ones that we had the conversations with and connections with. We only feed. I know this number is going to sound a lot until you realize how small it is. We feed 600 people a month. Wow. Where when I was working in Chicago, I worked at a restaurant where we fed 900 people in a day. So and out of 600 guests in a month, 250 of them had dined at counter before, which is a crazy high number.
Yeah.
So we see people a lot. Mm-hmm. And we know a lot of our customers, not just me, but we know a lot of our guests on a first name basis just because we have spent that interaction with them.
Yeah. The people who sat beside us, beside our party, I was kind of celebrating early birthday. My friends were celebrating anniversary and Carmichael was celebrating all of us. So it was just great. But the people beside us had been to every single menu and they were so nice and so kind.
They actually, so I
love that you remember who I was sitting beside.
So I know who you're talking about. So you were, dining next to a couple that actually dined on Friday of last week.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Shout out to Raisa. She's awesome. So, you sat down with, and speaking of dietary restrictions, her husband had some dietary restrictions that were pretty intense, but then slowly was able to work through them. Mm-hmm. And we do have a policy where every single dietary restriction, no matter what it is, we can always accommodate, which was not initially my idea. I cannot take credit for that. That's actually, shout out to Grant Atkins at Alinea. I got very frustrated that I had to make a version of a Provençal dish that was, a bouillabaisse dish for someone who could not have nightshades or shellfish. That's every ingredient in a bouillabaisse, like every single one of them. So I was like, what in the world? What can we like?
Put on your Hogwarts hat and you're just making
He
potions?
was like, just like figure something out. And then he said it very bluntly. He was like, if we're in a 3 Michelin-Star restaurant, anyone that comes through that door should be able to have a great experience. Period.
I mean, I kind of get that, but I've had a chef come out of a restaurant and fuss at me because he heard through the grapevine that I didn't need an egg, and I was like, I'm sorry, like I'm a child, I can only eat scrambled eggs. I didn't send it back or anything.
He's got childish insecurities,
and I just kind of pushed it to the side. But I'm like, so first of all, that means someone at a restaurant that I paid to be at, I wasn't media, I wasn't anything, I was just Jana. Someone told on me, ratted me out, and was like, why did you eat their egg? And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't like a runny center. It's a texture thing. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's amazing. Someone else can eat it, which is, I guess, not a thing that you have someone else eat off your plate at a Michelin-Star restaurant. I
think that's ridiculous.
But I kind of got reprimanded. So I was a little nervous going into this because I was like, all right, I'm fancy but not, but I'm going in. And it changed everything about, I was like, great, when's the next one? I'm so sad I missed the Diva menu because that's not, I got super
That did
pumped.
have a Dolly dish on it,
I know,
too.
I saw Dolly on your wall and I was like, I'm home. This is great. So, just before we go, I have 2 things that I do want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Number one, because I always want people to be able to take something if they're a younger generation and they're not that you and I aren't 29 and will be forever, but something that I found on Reddit was staging. And it was a word that you referenced earlier. So if anybody's unfamiliar, I would say it's like a culinary intern, right? It's typically somebody who's entering the culinary space. But going into that, how can we make the culinary space better for them? How can we make any industry where people are starting out? Because I think in media, we see a lot of really young burnout, maybe a lot of mistreatment because maybe they're not paid, they're not treated well, but how can we be better leaders for that next generation of whoever's in our industry?
So this is going to be very to the point. We need to start actually believing and putting our money where our mouth is when we say that our people are the most important ingredient at a restaurant. Because you're not allowed to say that and then underpay your team and have people come in and work for you for free. You're just not allowed to say it. I don't care how awesome of a chef you are. I don't care what stars you have. If you are not paying some of your staff or you're not paying them a livable wage, you cannot say that you take care of your people. You just can't. So our minimum wage at Counter is either $25 an hour or $55,000 a year, no matter what position it is. Everyone knows what everyone makes. We're completely open book in every single way. And because of that, our labor cost is astronomical. When you are studying, you're told that your labor cost should be anywhere from 20 to 30%. Our labor cost is almost 50%, and it used to be 60%. Mm-hmm. But that is the most important part of the restaurant. And the people who we have there are genuinely the whole reason why that place is what it is. So we will adjust the price of the menu, we'll adjust what we get in to fit that. And for anyone who says, well, it's just because of your price point, we also have a casual restaurant, Spaghetti, where their labor cost is exactly the same percentage-wise as ours, but their price per person is 1/5. No, now it's 1/6 of what Counter is. So it has nothing to do with what the cost on the menu is. It has nothing to do with the price per person or the menu concept. If you genuinely care about your people, then you can organize and you can create a concept that fits making sure that everyone who works there has the livable wage, 110%. But you just got to put your money where your mouth is. You got to be willing to bite that bullet when you write those labor checks. Yeah. That's pretty much what it is.
I think that could be said for any industry.
Yes.
I really do. I think that it's really challenging when you're young and you're learning to advocate for yourself. I'm 36 and I think it's still something I struggle with because I always want to be part of the machine, keep things going, didn't want to make a fuss, but you have to show people that you value them. If you say you clearly value their labor, you have no problem cashing in on their labor. So why wouldn't you want that to continue to flow? And when I see how physically and mentally intensive your service is, y'all make it look easy. But in my head, I'm like, I know you're playing DJ, you're playing chef, you're coordinating all of this at the same time, and every single person in that kitchen with you is doing the same thing. Yeah. So it would be very challenging to say, I have all these distractions, all these demands outside of here just to make this work because I'm not making money. So I just feel like you should be praised for that because y'all have flipped that on its head. So thanks for leading the charge there.
Thank you. And I think, I think that's changed a lot in Charlotte specifically. When we first opened up Counter, the average Indeed posting for line cooks was $10 to $12 an hour. It is double that now. And that's not just because of the economic environment and everything like that. Because if that was the case, it would be like 16 to 17. Now it being this like 20 to 25 plus is showcasing that you have to value your employees or you are now going to be on the outskirts of the culinary community. Yeah. Cooks now are finding out, okay, this is truly what I'm worth. Yeah. And it's not some honor and privilege to go work at some high level restaurant and not get paid. Yeah. Like you should be being, taken care of if you're taking care of them.
Again, that goes for anybody out there. I think that was maybe like an old school mindset where it was just like the scarcity. It was like the harder we worked and the more we bled and whatever. Maybe that was like a badge of honor, but like it's not. Like your burnout is not a badge to wear. You need to be rested. You need to be fulfilled. You need to be surrounded by people who care about you and fill you up. So with that, I have to ask you the question that I ask everybody, and it is, what fills your cup in your life?
What fills my cup in my life is, I would say, two different things that are harmonious together. So it is what we do every single Tuesday morning, which is showing up to our mobile market with the bulb and assisting in ending food insecurity. But it's a kind of a greater thing than that. It is having our guests and having our employees, having our farmers, having, even something like the Michelin Guide or whatever, coming in and enjoying what we do within that restaurant, within those four walls, so then we can get filled up to then pouring it back out. Because my favorite feeling is being spent, being exhausted. So it's not about trying to overflow my cup. It is, I love that feeling of being to pour it back out. I love being able to bring in, a stage who is at a culinary school whose knife has like a chip in it or something, and like showing him on a stone how to get his knife back, and knowing that he's now going to know that for the rest of his life. It's really that pouring out that I enjoy the most. So we love our guests, we love the team that we have, and everything that allows us to get filled. But I think something that we're really addicted to at Counter, and it's not just me, it's really that whole team. We just love that ability to take what we receive there and just pour it back out.
Well, thank you for pouring into this community. And really quickly before we go, I do want to tell you guys that I will absolutely embarrass myself in front of a Michelin-Star chef if it means getting them to join me on Coffee and Conversations. I wrote a little ditty just to get Chef on here.
The greatest thing ever.
And he told me before this started that, and now it has been played at meetings. I literally created a song and sent it to your Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We may or may not play it at Counter the next time you're in, for everyone. It is pretty fantastic.
But when I talked to you, I know you're kind of on the fence, and I just said,
I cried.
You tell stories in such a special way, and everything I saw you doing in terms of being an advocate, being a beacon, and just being who you were, I just said, I need to talk to this person. So it was my shameless DM slide and song attached. I was like, I have never just thrown myself at a person so much for an interview.
It was absolutely spectacular. Yeah, come to Counter.
We'll play the song.
We'll play the song. If you watch this and you mention that song, I will play it for you, 110%. Yeah. It is absolutely spectacular.
I said, they like music, I like music. I'll get them with a song.
It worked. It 100% worked.
Well, Chef, thank you so much for joining me, for humoring me, and really for sharing all of yourself with us today. Thank you.
And also, quick shout out. I love that we're doing this at Community Matters Cafe. I worked with Chef Ashley Anna at Haymaker when we opened it up, and then she came over here and opened this up. And the work that she's doing with Kyle and Shay, it really is amazing. And to me, this is the ultimate example of what cooking and hospitality really should be. It's where not only are you taking care of people who are dining here, but you're taking care of the people who are creating that hospitality and service too. And it's just really, really awesome stuff. So support Community Matters Cafe.
Yes, we love it here. That makes me so happy. Thank you for saying that. Thanks, Chef.
Awesome. Thank you.
Taught us you can't walk away from who you are. Your truth burns brighter than a Michelin-Star. You mix sound with soul and flavors bright and bold. Now there's one more chapter waiting to be heard. You bring the fork and I'll bring the mic on Coffee and Conversations to share the story of your life.
To everybody out there, thank you so much for joining me for Coffee and Conversations. Now, if you want more stories of motivation, inspiration, and empowerment that can fill up your cup when it's empty, no matter where you are, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more.